Good morning and welcome to this episode of Tax Muchuzi. My name is Josephine Kabiesiza and I'll be hosting. We would like to first of all apologize for the delayed start, but we hope to make it worth your while. Let me ask the guests to introduce themselves before we can get into the gist of the topic. Ladies
Good
first.
morning, our viewers. Hafsa Sebuya is my name. I basically do tax education in URA.
Welcome, Hafsa.
Good morning, our dear viewers. My name is Paddy Ochen. I'm the manager stamp duty in the Domestic Taxes Department, URA.
Welcome. And as he's introduced himself as a manager stamp duty, the topic today is stamp duty. Many of us have read the newspapers and it's talking about stamp duty, implying that URA has imposed a tax on agreements. So before we get into that, please tell us, what is stamp duty?
Thank you so much. Stamp duty is a non-tax revenue that is levied on listed instruments in the second schedule of the Stamp Duty Act 2014. But ideally, it's not a new tax. We are just bringing to life the instruments that were listed there and making it aware to the public that in case you happen to execute such an instrument, you need to authenticate it by paying stamp duty.
Okay.
Yes.
Just to pick up on something you said non-tax revenue. First, when we are paying, it's all money, it's all tax. What is non-tax revenue?
Non-tax revenue is just the services that the non-tax revenue are services that we do offer on where we collect taxes, but we do not look at income because you need a particular service. Say you need to present maybe your caveat somewhere, maybe your agreement somewhere. So it is what will authenticate that document. Let's look at maybe motor vehicle fees. You need a service, then you end up paying the fees that are payable there. You can basically also look at driving permits. It's just creating that service available to you that you pay.
What is an instrument?
Thank you, Josephine. An instrument includes a document because when Hafsa mentioned that stamp duty is paid on instruments listed in the second schedule of the Stamp Duty Act, these are documents. The instruments are documents that create a right or that create a liability. Yes, or it could be some kind of transfer of that right or limiting of a right or of a liability. So as long as it's a document that gives legal effect to a transaction and it's listed in the second schedule, then that is the instrument on which stamp duty is levied.
All right.
Yes.
Can you tell us about these stamp duty rates?
Yeah, so the stamp duty rates vary. We have what we call fixed rates. The fixed rates are the ones that do not vary depending on the value of that particular instrument. So they are fixed at rates such as Uganda shillings 15,000 per transaction, or Uganda shillings 35,000 per transaction. So examples of instruments in the Stamp Duty Act that attract stamp duty at a fixed rate. We have the agreements that we're talking about. Josephine, you mentioned agreements. So these agreements attract stamp duty at a fixed rate of Uganda shillings 15,000 per agreement. Yes, then we also have another fixed rate of 35,000, and that is paid on insurance policies. So every time you enter into an insurance policy, third-party insurance, there's stamp duty of 35,000 paid on every policy. So other instruments in the second schedule that attract stamp duty at 15,000, we have things like caveats, we have releases, and affidavits.
Divorce.
Divorce agreements. I know it's not one that we want to popularize because as a country we want to encourage that people stay in their marriages. But yes, should you choose to divorce, for that divorce to have legal effect, there's a fixed rate of 15,000 paid on that divorce document. Now, the other category of rates is what we call the ad valorem rates. Now, these ad valorem rates vary depending on the value of the instrument. So this value could be the consideration, it could be the liability, yes, but the applicable percentage rates that are applied on those values, on that consideration, on those amounts contained in these instruments. A popular one would be when you're transferring your land into your names. Yes, that land has a value, and the stamp duty that you pay is 1.5% of the value of the land that you're transferring into your name. So this is ad valorem in the sense that it varies depending on the value of the land. So no fixed amount will be paid. The amount that you pay of stamp duty varies depending on the value of the land. So those are the two broad categories of stamp duty rates: the fixed and the ad valorem.
All right. Thank you for helping us with that. And then, who are the stakeholders involved in collecting stamp duty?
When we talk about stakeholders, we are basically looking at those we partner with that help us do collect the stamp duty. We look at Ministry of Lands, because ideally in transfer of land, that's where we pick the value of the land on which we apply that valorem rate of 1.5%. We look at insurance companies because they manage the policies. We look at banks because they have the different facilities in terms of loans, mortgages, and we look at the Ministry of Justice. We do collect fines, we do collect bail fees, we collect a number of things from them. So ideally we have agencies that we do work with so that we can be able to help execute and see how we can authenticate those instruments.
Okay. I also wanted to know who pays stamp duty. For example, for some of them it seems straightforward, but you'll still explain for us. But I'm wondering if my tenancy agreement with my landlord, when we sign that agreement, who pays?
Stamp duty is paid by the person who makes, who draws, or who executes an instrument in Uganda. Yes. So if you take the example,
English that everyone can understand.
yes. So if I to simplify it, we've talked about the various instruments. Okay. Let's take the example of an agreement. So who pays stamp duty on, say, an employment agreement? So the law says that the person who makes that agreement is the one that is required to pay stamp duty. So for the case of employment contracts, usually it's the employer who makes that agreement. So it's the employer who pays stamp duty of 15,000 on every employment contract. If you're looking at tenancy agreements, for example, these tenancy agreements are drawn or made by the landlord. So it's the landlord who pays stamp duty on that tenancy contract. If it's transfer of land, okay, it's the buyer who pays, because remember, an instrument gives you a right over a particular property for the case of land. So it's the buyer that is registering their interest in this land. Yes, so it's them that pays the stamp duty on transfer of land.
All right. And then are agreements the only instruments where stamp duty is applicable?
Not really, because when you look at the Stamp Duty Act 2014, we have a number of instruments. I think we have about 66 instruments therein. And as he has already mentioned, we collect both on fixed rates, those that are predetermined, and ad valorem. So we have a number of instruments that we do collect stamp duties from.
Okay.
So maybe to add, for the benefit of our viewers, the common instruments, maybe we could just mention, we have caveat removals, we have hire purchase agreements, we have mortgage deeds, yes. So there's a whole list of instruments that attract stamp duty and not only agreements.
Okay. What happens if someone doesn't pay stamp duty? On the flip side, what are the benefits of paying the stamp duty?
Ideally, when one doesn't pay stamp duty, definitely there's some penalty that may rise. And as we refer still to the law itself, it's 100 currency points and our currency point is 20,000. So ideally that's a 2 million shilling penalty or imprisonment for a period not exceeding 6 months, or both. So it depends in which angle we are looking at it from. But ideally, there are benefits of you paying stamp duty because we are trying to authenticate this document or the instrument to be permissible in the eyes of courts, so that when you present it, whatever is contained within has already been legalized. So we are looking at such a situation so that you do not get any issues as you're presenting this document anywhere, say in court, or there are issues that would require you to actually prove maybe your tenancy somewhere, or maybe the employment in itself. So basically, that's what we are trying to do to the public, to see that whatever document they hold, say in terms of an agreement, is authenticated. You never know when you will be required to present it somewhere.
Okay. So, oh, you want
Yeah,
to add something?
yeah, and I think that's one of the core reasons that we are getting out to the public and sensitizing the public about the benefits of paying stamp duty, because there is something in it for our tax-paying community. Yes, we've had very disturbing scenarios where someone presents their document in commercial courts of laws, and then it's not acceptable because stamp duty was not paid, and then you find that someone is losing out. So we are calling upon the public to embrace the payment of stamp duty, because there's the benefit of authentication of these documents, making these documents legally recognizable and admissible in commercial courts of law. You just never know when a dispute will arise.
Yeah.
Okay. Then also, in the case, for example, of transfer, yes, we know people who buy land and just keep the land with the transfer forms, you know, in their houses, and they do not do this transfer. But why it's important that you make this transfer, pay the stamp duty, is that this title now is transferred in your names, and you have a legal right, legal ownership over this particular document, over this title, over this land. So we want to really call upon the general public to embrace it. Come pay stamp duty on your agreements, come pay stamp duty on your employment contracts, so that they're given legal effects, so that tomorrow, in case of any dispute, they are recognizable and admissible in courts of law.
Okay. And then I wanted to know when or at what point do I pay stamp duty? Do I make my agreement, then when I see I'm about to have an issue with Hafsa, I'm like, now let me go pay stamp duty and we can go to court. At what point do I pay stamp duty?
The payment of stamp duty has a timeline. So for all instruments that are executed within Uganda, payment of stamp duty should happen within 45 days of execution or drawing or making of that instrument. So it's important that this stamp duty is paid, one, to avoid penalty, because like Hafsa mentioned, if you don't pay this stamp duty, then URA could come and enforce payment of the penalty, and under extreme circumstances, it could also lead to imprisonment of the offender for a period not exceeding 6 months. So it's important that this is paid within the statutory timelines of 45 days to avoid the inconvenience that comes with the penalties and possible imprisonment. But I want to emphasize that it's even more important to pay the stamp duty to reap the benefits of payment of stamp duty, like I have already articulated before. But we also have instruments that are executed outside of Uganda. So payment of stamp duty for instruments that are executed outside of Uganda is within 30 days from the time that agreement or that instrument is received in Uganda. The benefits are as already stated. Yes.
Another question I had is, how often do I pay stamp duty? When I pay stamp duty and I'll keep taking what I can relate with, which is let's say a tenancy agreement. If I pay stamp duty, or if stamp duty is paid, when rent was 1 million, we had signed 1 million. Then now rent becomes 2 million. Do I keep paying, or the other stamp duty works and we just say refer to last stamp duty?
Whenever you make an adjustment in that agreement, it's something new because the contents are.
Bless you. Some water. Paddy, you can chip in.
Yes. So as Hafsa was saying, when the contents the agreement or the contract change, it means that you're making a new agreement or you're making a new contract. So every time a new contract is made, stamp duty of 15,000 is payable within the statutory timeline of 45 days for those made in Uganda and 30 days for those made outside and received in Uganda. Yes, but it's a one-off payment because we know of people who have been in employment under the same terms 5-10 years. Okay, so that contract of employment that was made when someone was being employed, if nothing has changed, then that payment of stamp duty that was made then still applies throughout the period that this contract is valid.
So can you share with us a step-by-step process on how to declare?
Okay. So declaration of stamp duty is simple, and it's self-service through the URA web portal. So the first step is that you visit our URA web portal on www.ura.go.ug. Then you make a declaration on the portal of the instrument for which stamp duty is going to be paid. After making that declaration and submitting, the system will generate a declaration form, an acknowledgement form, and a payment registration slip for you to pay the stamp duty that results from that instrument for which the declaration was made. After that, you proceed to the bank to make payment, or you can make payment using any of the available payment channels that URA has, which include mobile money. So you can actually make payment of that stamp duty using mobile money. You can pay using a check. You can pay using a USSD code that was made available. You can pay using a Visa machine. You can pay electronically using EFT or RTGS. So we've made it very convenient and flexible for our taxpayers and our clients to make payments. So after payment has been made using the variety of forms that I have mentioned, you present the payment and the declaration form to a URA office where barcoding is done, because then the URA officer will confirm that this payment has indeed been made and received by URA. Barcodes are fixed to the instruments, and after that, a stamp duty certificate is issued. So the stamp duty certificate can be issued by the URA officer, but again, to the convenience of our clients, you can still self-serve that.
Maybe what we need to emphasize, because there is a barcoding within the process, the client needs to move with the original document at that particular time after payment, because we are stamping the actual document, the physical document. Because at times people move with copies and it defeats the purpose. You cannot barcode the copy when the original is not present.
Okay. So we have some questions. We have Ibrahim Lule Kauki on Facebook thanking you for highlighting these issues and saying that awareness is very important to the public. Then we have Muhwana Samson still on Facebook saying, please, can I get a TIN online using my smartphone? Please highlight I think the process, because I am in need of it. No, it's not directly related to stamp duty.
Yes.
One can take on that.
Yes, with the TIN, most especially if it's an individual, he can use the instant TIN application where you need the national ID, and maybe you need to have an email, you need to have the phone number, because you'll be punching in these details. Because we need to access you, we need to be in contact with you after you have applied for a TIN. So once you submit with those details and your source of income being clear, where are you going to source the income on which we are going to tax at the end of it all? So you submit within 5 minutes, the TIN certificate will be presenting itself on your screen so that you can print it, and that is all.
Okay. So Samson, you can go to the website
.go.ug. On the right hand side, you look for domestic taxes. Then under the menu that will come, you'll go where there is a registration. Then you'll see where we have the instant tin. Then you'll click there, it will open the page. It's just a one pager that you'll be filling, then submit.
Samson, I hope that's helpful, and I hope you can give us feedback once you've done the process. If you need further help, we have the URA helpline, the toll-free number. We have Oliver Nakaziwa on YouTube asking, is there a penalty for late payment of stamp duty?
5 days, which we will get you if you haven't done that. So it's better to work within the 45 days in case the instrument is executed within the country.
We have Umar Sechito on YouTube asking if agreements have a limitation. I don't know, does that make sense?
Maybe he wanted to know which types of agreements. As we have said, we have the employment agreements or contracts, we have suppliers agreements, we have the tenancy agreement. So whenever you have a dealing in between another party, at the end of the day you sign an agreement that will be binding for both parties. So if such a document is there, then that means you have an agreement. The title may not actually be agreement, but the scenario when there is an agreement, when there is a document that has been signed, count it as an agreement and declare it. Then pay stamp duty at 15,000.
Okay, so sales.
When one is selling a business, I don't know.
I think in the case of sales, you know that sales like in a business, will stamp duty still apply?
I don't see any agreement that is in between there because the transaction is very clear. You're selling and one is maybe buying. It's maybe a shop. But when it comes to an say an item that requires you to put down whatever you are selling, say it's a car. If it's a car, if it's land, it requires you to note down details of that particular item, when you're going to pay and for how long, and who you're selling to, all those details. It will definitely translate into an agreement where you need to pay stamp duty.
Okay. Umar Sechito is still asking, can I make an agreement for selling my phone or laptop?
Say, you're the one who sold to me this and it's not exactly what you sold. Because whenever you're making an agreement, you're putting down details of the item that is included in that item, in that agreement. So if it's a phone, you have a type, you have the series, you have all that detail. So I guess it's also an agreement.
So maybe to add, in ordinary trade, many times these agreements are made where, for example, it's a credit sale, because then you find that there's a definition of the terms of payment, the credit period, and by signing that agreement, there are interests that are being protected on either side. So that usually, even in our ordinary trade, gives rise to an agreement against which stamp duty of 15,000 ought to be paid. And then there are scenarios where you go to a shop, now from the customer perspective, then someone gives you a warranty or a guarantee. And then maybe something goes south and you want to go and have this actually implemented. But then the seller says, no, I did not agree to any such term. So that's why it's important that under those circumstances, we have an agreement that has been made, stamp duty paid on it, so that tomorrow, as a customer, in the example that I gave, you can legally enforce the terms that were contained in that agreement.
Okay. We have Ndege Jonathan asking, does URA barcode a handwritten or only typed agreements alone for stamp?
As long as you can.
Because, let me give you an example. The Vivanjas people sell. In most cases, those agreements are handwritten because they are crafted with the LC chairman, LC1. So it's highly unlikely that it may be typed. So it may be presented in the handwritten bit of it. we do accept it because it's very clear what exactly is contained, what were they selling at that particular time, what are the parties involved. So once it qualifies for what an agreement is, irrespective of the print, we do barcode them.
Okay. We have Henry Kakoza. Does non-payment derive the legal effect from the instrument?
Non-payment of stamp duty. Ideally, not really the legal, but it doesn't authenticate the details within. What we are looking at is authenticating this document or the instrument such that it's permissible in the courts of law. So it may not take away the legality, but it's not permissible. Then how are you going to use it at the end of the day? So it goes back to one thing. And by the way, 15,000 is not a lot depending on the contents of that agreement. Because just imagine it's land, and land is about maybe 10 or so millions. Again, it's a 15,000. So you may end up losing a case because of 15,000. So you weigh and see what would make sense.
So in the same way, when we asked who pays stamp duty on an agreement, Rogers Moduko is asking who is liable for the penalty of non-payment of stamp duty, the employee or the employer?
The penalty follows the line of who is liable to pay the stamp duty. So it means that in case of default, it's that person who in the first place was liable to paying the stamp duty that has defaulted, and as such, the penalty applies to that same person. However, the Stamp Duty Act also mentions that there can be a specific term, a specific term entered in an agreement, that is the employee who will pay the stamp duty. Then now the liability of payment of stamp duty is on the employee, and also the penalty, if that stamp duty is not paid, will also fall on the employee. But the general rule is that the person who is making the agreement is the one who pays the stamp duty, and in case of default, it's that same person who pays the penalty.
Okay. Benon Juko is asking, can you kindly repeat the process of paying stamp duty? And maybe we'll ask team is ready. Okay, so you can, Paddy, I think you can, or have someone of you can guide us where to go.
We are going to start from the portal on www.ura.go.ug. Then we move on to domestic taxes. Doesn't the laptop need to be near?
That's what they're saying.
Instrument. And these are the details. The page that first comes, you need to fill this section A, would require the details of this person who is executing the instrument. Let me assume this person should be having a TIN. Once you have a TIN, once you key it in, it will auto-populate the details and you will not have a lot. Go to next. Take you to next, yes. And here we have details of the instrument. Then this is where you need to select. As we had clearly talked about the ratings, we have the fixed rates and the ad valorem. Once you are here, once you're picking a fixed rate, say a caveat, and you select a caveat, ideally it will auto-populate the payment, the payable amounts there. And once it's a fixed, as we had told you, we have stakeholders, say Ministry of Lands. We need to get the figure from Ministry of Lands for that particular land where it's located, because that's where the government valuer sits. So on that particular amount is where we are going to pick that volume rate of 1.5%. Then once you fill here, you'll go to next. Next. Once you go next,
can't do it.
it will give you a declaration form. Let me explain it, which will be accompanied by a payment registration slip that will have that fixed amount you're going to pay as stamp duty. So you can select the payment method that you feel you want to use. Either you're going to use the over the counter, you're going directly to the bank with the money. You can use the USSD code for those who have phones that are button phones. That is *285#. Then you will access that payment method, but ensure that you have some money on mobile on your mobile number, because it's going to pick the payment from there. If the amounts are a little big, we accept the check. We accept the EFT, where you give a command to your bank to credit the URA account with that money, or even RTGS can be used for this particular scenario, so that the amounts can be credited. And once the payment has been honored by the bank, you will come back to URA in case you may not know how to print the stamp certificate. Because we triggered the system, a stamp certificate can't come out before the monies have been honored by the bank. So once they are honored by the bank, then you can come to any nearest URA station to help you print the stamp certificate and barcode that instrument that you are trying to pay stamp duty against. So ensure that you move with the original copy of that instrument so that we can barcode and attach the barcode stick.
Thank you so much.
And the details, which we didn't have at this particular time.
But at least you know where to go and you can carry on from there. And then we have a Chamu or a Kamu Boni asking for clarity on construction contract agreement.
Yeah, construction contract agreements are also agreements in the definition of an agreement under Instrument 5 of the second schedule, so they also qualify for payment of stamp duty of 15,000.
All right. There's a statement from Falcon Entertainment 256. I imagine you are sent to Tax USA. You guys will make a lot of money because you are money oriented. I don't know if you have any comments.
Ideally, that client has an opinion, but as we mentioned at the beginning, all these instruments are meant to pay stamp duty within the act as it's specified. So we are just creating awareness to whoever is handling such an instrument to ensure that they pay stamp duty, because we are not creating a new tax, but we are just creating awareness for those who may not be aware that there is stamp duty against the paper they are holding. Just that.
And then Rogers Moduko is still asking, what is the disadvantage of instant tin over comprehensive tin? Is there any?
I wouldn't say it's a disadvantage, but normally we encourage, if it's a non-individual or a company, you use the other Excel based, because it gives us more details pertaining your business, because when you have a company you have directors that follow through, so at times it's not easy when you are here with the instant tin, but at the end of the day you have all gotten tins because that's a service you needed. But I would recommend, if it's an individual, kindly use the Excel based so that you can have the full declaration of what your company is.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think the next question is kind of, we've had the gospel, we want to change. Maybe we've passed the 45-day or 30-day period. So Caesar Shebakola is asking, he's saying, thank you for the insights. If an organization wants to pay stamp duty for contracts with its employees, what period should be considered?
Thank you, Caesar. The Stamp Duty Act came into force in 2014. So we're looking at, since we're coming out to the tax-paying community, okay? It talks about the gospel that we're now spreading that they've had. Please come and self-declare. Look at all those contracts that have been executed, because you have not been executing them. Come self-declare, pay. Yes, and then that will be a good starting point for us and for our cordial working relationship between URA and the tax-paying community.
All right. Pauline Wesonga is asking, how do we declare instruments made with non-resident parties without physical address in Uganda?
Yeah, I think when a contract is made with a non-resident party, the first test is has it been made in Uganda, because the stamp duty is paid on contracts made in Uganda and those made outside Uganda but later received in Uganda or presented in Uganda, because probably those involve a party that is a resident here in Uganda. So contracts made with non-resident parties, they may not have an address, yes, but as long as the terms have been clearly stipulated in that contract and it has been made in Uganda, then please go ahead and make payment of the 15,000 Uganda shillings of stamp duty following the process that we just took you through a little while ago. Yes.
Okay. And I think it's the last question from Henry Kakoza. What plans does URA have for the non-registered agreement? Since this section of the law has not been enforced previously, most of the agreements in existence have not been compliant. Are they going to pay the penalty?
I think that's related to a question that one of the viewers just asked. We're saying, please come, self-declare all those contracts where stamp duty has not been paid, do the self-declaration, and let's kickstart this good relationship. Yes, so where you self-declare and make payment of all those contracts that have been executed without payment of stamp duty, we are looking at not penalizing you if it's coming voluntarily. However, if we come to you, if after this this call to action that we have made to the tax-paying community, and then you don't heed to the guidance and the request that has been made, and then URA comes to you, and then we find that the contracts that were executed without payment of stamp duty, then in those circumstances, the penalty will apply.
Compliment from Timothy Mugahe saying, thanks for the insights. It has helped some of us know more about stamp duty. So Hafsa and Paddy, thank you for this.
You're welcome.
Any closing remarks?
I would like to thank our viewers today and the public at large for supporting the call on revenue mobilization. We do not take you for granted, but whenever we come, we are trying to create awareness here and there, but at the end of the day, it is collecting revenue. Thank you very much, and God bless you as we develop Uganda together.
Okay.
Thank you, Hafsa. Paddy?
Maybe the parting shots from me. I would like to add my voice to that of Hafsa's to appreciate the viewers who are able to tune in and listen to us when we are discussing the stamp duty subject today, but also to the general tax-paying community. Thank you so much. Thank you for paying your taxes, because payment of your taxes goes a long way in development of our country and in liberating our country from donor dependence. So thank you for paying your taxes. Regarding the subject of stamp duty, I would like to implore you to make use of this window where we have come out to you and requested you to come and voluntarily make declarations of your agreements, of your instruments, where stamp duty had not previously been paid, so that this payment is made voluntarily without necessarily having to be enforced on, and also for you to be able to reap the benefits that come with payment of stamp duty, the authentication of your documents. Please come, let's support you. Let's offer our usual high standard service to enable you comply and get on the good side of the law.
Thank you so much. I think for me, what I've picked out is that URA is taking the step to educate and engage, and that enforcement, apart with the fines and the jail time, 6 months, we are trying. We're telling each other that certainly it's there, but it's not what we're emphasizing. We're saying, come forward and let's have a conversation about this and declare. You know best what's going on in your business or your situation. Declare before the taxman has to go to the other extreme, which we don't want to go to. We won't even talk about it anymore now. So please, the numbers are being shown, the toll-free numbers, if you want more clarity. If you're watching us on the different platforms, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, X, for those of you who even use TikTok, URA is on TikTok. Please reach out. You can go into the DMs. You can approach any URA station. We also have a URA email. Any avenue you have to contact URA, we are willing and we are looking forward to engage with you so that you can move on the clean slate. If you've heard this gospel and you've been touched by this gospel, don't harden your heart. Just come and let's sort this out. Thank you so much for watching us and listening. And may God bless you. Have a good day.